Time for some more news, and this time related to the Winds of Magic, a much needed change for Total War Warhammer 3. Something that I've been talking about for a long time is that there needs to be a change to the magic system, and it looks like we get a little bit of one here in the way that the Winds of Magic are done and handled, and they talked about that in previous blogs. So in upfronting the knowledge in this video, what we're going to be talking about here today is the change of Winds to Magic. So the way this is going to work is basically there is a Winds of Magic level for each location you go into, and that will increase the reserve in which you can pull from whenever you jump onto a battle. So rather than having like a static Winds of Magic reserve, it's going to be dictated by the location you're in, and that pool that you've got, your reserve, will either drain or be added to based off of the winds in that region. In addition to, when you enter into the actual realm of chaos, you get access to the Cataclysmic Spells. Now, these spells were added to the 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy with the Storm of Magic supplement, and it is sick to see them coming into this game. Basically, whenever a specific lore of magic is quote-unquote ascendant, then you will get a passive buff that is in line with that lore, and then access to a very special spell. So what we're going to do today is go through this blog here as always, and we're going to quickly jump through the Storm of Magic supplement and see some of these actual ascendant spells to get a sense for how that one-to-one translation has made its way into Total War Warhammer 3. As always, guys, if you have not yet pre-ordered Total War Warhammer 3, you can do so using the Nexus link in my description. That way you can get a Steam key directly from the developer, and it is a great way to support the channel. And if you are heading out after this brief summary, don't forget to like, comment, and or subscribe. I can't tell you how much it helps this motherfucking channel. But if you're sticking around, let's dive in here on the Storm of Magic changes. The Winds of Magic changes coming to Total War Warhammer 3. And this kind of initial portion is a little bit of a prelude, just kind of sets up what happens here. And these first two paragraphs talk about how Winds of Magic will be changed. And essentially, they kind of create the scenario of, okay, hey, you know, if this place has got a blowing Winds of Magic, then it's got no bonuses to your reserve. If it's got calm Winds of Magic, it's going to deplete at 10 per turn. And then if you get strong Winds of Magic, it'll increase at 5 per turn. Now, what's cool about this too is you can adopt things like the channeling stance, which will again increase that by a further 15, and you have special heroes, of course, that will increase magical reserves, giving it an additional 20% in this specific example. So it'll give you a total of 22 on the following turn, and it will cap out at a max of 100 within the next few turns. So again, a really cool system where the actual Winds of Magic in a region will dictate either a drain or a gain on your reserves of magic. And that gain, it can actually be further tailored by, say, stuff like hero skills, lord skills, and even special stances, which is nice. But there's another cool thing about this when it comes to the Winds of Magic is how it applies to demons. Now, of course, you know, demons are, well, you know, demons, and as thus they are tethered to the Winds of Magic. So if your Winds of Magic drops too low, then you will receive penalties to replenishment rate, leadership, and physical resistance, all debuffs to those three. And then depending upon your actual god alignment, they'll then get further benefits or debuffs. So at high, the buffs are campaign movement range, and for Tzeentch, they get a barrier recharge speed. But remember that the Winds of Magic have a lot of implications for Tzeentch and can be manipulated directly, which is cool. For Khorne, they'll get obviously campaign movement and spell resistance buffs. For Nurgle, they'll get melee defense buffs. And then for Slaanesh, they will get speed buffs. So quite nice. I do like that a lot. Now, in addition here too, the way you gamble will always be a percentage off of your total reserve. So if you have a failed gamble when you jump into an actual battle, then it will not have as profound of an effect on your total amount of magic. So it's a little bit better of a system this time around, I think. And in addition to, there's the ways that you can sap the pool of reserve for your enemies. So this reserves pool represents the amount of magic you have to draw on through the course of the fight. It slowly moves from the reserve pool to your power pool, from which you directly spend it on spells. Nothing new there. If the reserves run out, you will need to either make do with what you have or find a source of magical power in the battlefield. Draining it from an enemy spellcaster with a Tzeentchian ritual, for example. So you can actually directly drain those winds, which is quite juicy. I like that a lot. So moving on here, though, I like these changes. I like how it is a little bit more unpredictable, and at the same time, you have to kind of plan out your magic. You can't just kind of have at it. They did say, once you jump back onto the battlefield, or onto the campaign map, things will regulate and come back to normal, mainly for balance and fun reasons. But Storm of Magic is now the big focus here. So basically, whenever you enter into the Chaos realm, and you're obviously not a Khorne unit, and you're not doing a survival or a quest battle, you'll be subject to the Storm of Magic. And the Storm of Magic will allow you to basically cast these Cataclysm spells and gaining passive bonuses from a empowered or ascendant lore. So the Storm of Magic also changes as the battle goes on, each lore having a chance to be the next in ascendancy. Which lore is currently empowered has a number of effects laid out below, as well as giving you access to that lore's Cataclysm spell as an army ability, charged by any spell casting by either side on the field. Once charged, the change to the next random spell lore begins to count down. You lose access to the Cataclysm spell if the lore changes before you cast it. You can only use this Cataclysm spell if your army has a spellcaster, though the passive effects of an Ascendant lore are still applied without one. So you don't have to have that specific lore to cast this Ascendant spell. Cataclysm spell in the Ascendant lore. You just simply have to have a spellcaster, then you can channel it and cast it. And of course, they're just going to be broken abilities. Now, it's the intention here. They want that to be not fair, to be just completely disgustingly broken. So here's each lore and its respective benefit as well as Cataclysm spell. So let's quickly go through these. So for beasts, all units become immune to psychology and gain charge bonuses. They get the spell Merciu's Monstrous Regiment. The strength of the wild is imbued on one unit's weapon damage, AP, melee attack, and physical resistance. It's probably something like a 33 or 50% bonus, something stupid strong, because these are supposed to be very strong, just broken abilities. So for Lore of Life, all units gain Perfect Vigor, which is juicy, again. And then they get the Storm of Renewal spell. A tree spouts from the ground as raw life energy flows across the battlefield, providing a huge regeneration aura, which is really sick. Seems like a kind of like a perpetual vortex ability, more or less, where it's a tree rather than a vortex that's just kind of constantly regenerating for you. So a positive vortex, as it were. Lore of Death, all units gain AP melee damage, and the spell is Ashes and Dust. A suffocating dust cloud chokes the life from enemies in a wide area effect after a short wind-up. Ooh. Lore of Fire, all units get bonus melee attacks with the spell Magma Storm. A massive eruption protrudes from the ground, burning everything in the area in a magical fire. I expect it to look exactly like a volcano, and that sounds lovely. Lore of Heavens, all missile units deal extra damage and extra AP damage. And then Thorson's Thunderstorm, a great storm develops above the battlefield, annihilating an area with lightning bolts. So I imagine a specific AoE blast attack, and I thought it might have been something that attacks only air, but no, I think it's just an AoE shot. But Lore of Light, all units gain immunity to psychology and magical attacks, which is really sick. I do like that a lot, especially when you're fighting against demons. That's going to be very helpful. Then Time Amok, the flow of time is altered over a portion of the battlefield, improving allies' reload skill, speed, and melee attack. So that's really nice, I like that, right? So you have Net of Amontok, and this is kind of Time Amok, and it's basically buffing up their speed versus completely hindering someone's speed. I like that a lot. So Lore of Metal, all units receive bonus armor and missile resistance. Gehenna's Golden Globe, a great molten sphere emerges from the earth and rolls across enemy forces. So probably some sort of wind spell, kind of like Burning Head, but with a golden globe of molten sphere of molten metal that will do probably high AP damage, I would imagine. And then lastly, Lord of Shadow with the Dance of Despair. A haunting tune develops enemies in an area, reducing their leadership, melee defense, and melee attack. Oh, and all units get faster charge and movement speed. So, to be expected, always dealing with initiative and movement with Shadow. Now, moving into Khorne and Tzeentch, though, there's a little bit of a different situation. For Khorne, they will get those passive bonuses of the Ascendant lore, but they cannot use the spell. His forces receive further bonuses to their natural spell resistance in a Storm of Magic, toughening against the unnatural forces around them, but not the benefits of the Ascendant lore, such as his anger. Oh, okay, I misread that. I thought that he could get the passive bonuses, but it seems that he cannot. But such is his anger at the storm that Khorne gains the ability to summon demons more easily, allowing for a surprise bloodthirster should your opponent get too cocky. I love that. And for Tzeentch here, they get to choose the first lore in Ascendancy, which kind of helps them kind of cater their plans when it comes to stuff. His forces also have a lot of abilities through armies and characters to increase the rate at which their power recharges from the reserves, making an infinite reserve quite strong. So I love this capability here with Storm of Magic. I would love to see if there's any improvements or changes to the way spells actually work in the game. You guys know I've been talking a lot about how fun a possible dispel mechanic would be or something of the sort. And I'm really curious to see if we're going to get any information on that, since we now are getting our big toe wet with the Storm of Magic little supplement portion here. So that's it for the news on Total War Warhammer 3. We're now just going to quickly jump through the Storm of Magic supplement to take a look at some of these Cataclysm spells from tabletop. If you're not interested in that, like I said, you can go ahead and shut the video down. But let's just go ahead and keep jumping forward here to some juicy lore. And I think I've just got them all in tabs right here. So these are the Cataclysm spells themselves. And you had a whole lot of stuff you had to deal with. I think I actually just came back into Warhammer Fantasy with 8th edition, and right when Storm of Magic had just started to fall off in prevalence and popularity. It was a really fun ability where you basically were choosing a mage and you could summon things onto the battlefield that you were not ever able to summon in specific armies, and you had a tower you had to access. It was really, really, really cool supplement. But moving on, we can see here, you know, summoning terrain features and units, a lot of really cool stuff. Here's a converted Grey Wizard, which looks like it's from the Saruman model combined with some other stuff. Who knows? Looks very similar. But here is the lore of beasts, and here it is. Mercio's Monstrous Regiment remains in play. Mercio's Regiment is an augment spell within the range of 24 inches for the duration of the spell on non-character models in the target unit. Double their strength, toughness, and attack characteristic. That's stupid strong. So that should give you a sense for how to kind of look at these Cataclysm spells. It says that it gives all these bonuses, right? To let's see if I do this right. Nope. There we go. Let's go here because we're going to look at this. It's weapon damage, AP, melee attack, and physical resistance. That might just be like a 100% bonus across the board with maybe a 50% physical resistance buff. That's how broken these abilities are supposed to be. And like they say, they're already supposed to not be fair. So that is your Monstrous Regiment one from Lore of Beasts. The Lore of Life has got the, where is it? Storm of Renewal. I just looked right at it. And this is a magical vortex, like I was saying, you know, a large round template, and it will continue to heal things around. Any unit under or passed over by the template immediately regains 2d6 plus 1 wounds of models. So at bare minimum, 3. That's pretty sweet, right? I love that. So here is Storm of Renewal from the tabletop. Then we're going to see Lord of Death. We get Ashes and Dust, a magical vortex that will, again, be just like I would imagine here. Any model under or moved over by the template suffers a Strength 2 hit with no armor saves allowed. A Strength 2 hit is not substantial, so this is probably a low AP, high damage style of vortex, I would imagine. But though in subsequent turns, Ashes and Dust moves in a random direction, just like you would imagine a vortex ability to do so. Moving into the Lore of Fire, Magma Storm, again, a magical vortex. Any model under or over gets a Strength 10 hit. Whew! Furthermore, if the dice roll for the movement is 2 or 4, then at the end of the Magma Storm's move, center D3 small round templates on it to represent eruptions. These then scatter 2d6 inches. Models under the final position of these templates, so damn. So this thing probably has some sort of exploding effect where, okay, it rips up and it shoots probably little meteors into the air, and those land and have a chance to then blow up and do more damage. So I imagine it would be something like that if we're just kind of reading a 1-to-1 here, kind of a really strong, devastating ability at its kind of not its apex, but at its epicenter, and then out from it has some other damaging capabilities that just cause other splash explosions in other regions. Pretty juicy. I'm juicy a lot today. I'm getting pretty got saucy. Thorsten's Thunderstorm. So any model, again, a magical vortex, suffers a Strength 6 hit. Once any hit has been resolved, each unit is pushed 2d6 in a random direction, but otherwise is described for the let the 4 winds blow in subsequent turns. Interesting. So what did it say here? But otherwise is described a little bit. magical vortex pushed into a unit, that unit will suffer the usual effects for vortex in question. Or vortex ends up in the middle of a unit, place it beyond. Oh, okay, that just has to do with tabletop rules. So this would be cool then too if it did have a lot of exploding and not exploding in the sense that it does damage, but just displacement. Like it blows up and it moves your units around in a lot of different ways, right? Like you've got this big, huge thunderstorm with maybe like gale force winds that rip stuff around. And maybe it even actually can do damage to stuff in the air, which would be a pretty cool, unique capability because we don't, I mean, actually, I have no idea. I've never used something like Comet of Cassandora and have something float over the top of it while it's being cast. I didn't know if they can actually get hurt by it, or say any of the lore of metal or the lore of fire spells that do have that raining down effect. Because maybe this just has the ability to do damage to air and ground, and it won't block either. Like that would be really cool. Like if you did have something flying over, it won't block and it'll still hit something underneath it. That would be pretty devastating. That's Thorson's Thunderstorm. Lore of Light has time Amok. This is a spell that targets the entire battlefield. This turn, there is either an extra shooting phase or an extra close combat phase. So kind of in line here where it's increasing that ability to do damage. This gives you a whole nother chance to do an extra shooting or close combat phase, which can be pretty devastating depending on the armor you're playing in 8th edition. Lore of Metal here, we have Gehenna's Golden Globe. So this is a magical vortex, and as any character under or passed over is removed as a casualty on a 5-up roll. Any other type of model is removed as a casualty on a D6 5-up. Let's see, any other type of model is removed as a casualty under passed over by the Templars removed as a casualty. I see. That's super devastating. So I could see this as having, again, a very high damage profile, maybe extremely high AP. And since it's like you can move out of the way of this, maybe it's kind of like, okay, well, if you stood in the way, then it's going to hurt you. But I wonder how this will come in, because that is devastating in 8th edition. Holy God. Goes to show you. Lore of Metal was really not used unless you were playing against Chaos, Bretonnia, Dwarfs, any extremely heavy armor faction, because you could use that armor against them. But for the most part, it was not as prevalent of a lore as, say, the lore of Death or Shadows, because those were particularly strong. High magic was very good, but depending on who you were playing, like if I was playing high magic, I was playing high elves and I was playing against the ogres, I would never touch high magic. You'd use the lore of Death, and you'd use Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma and Occam's Mind Razor, and you just delete ogres. So you had a lot of really interesting hard counters with Lords of Magic in Warhammer Fantasy Battles that you get very similarly in Total War Warhammer. But Dance of Despair here, this is a hex that targets all enemies on the battlefield. Target units are reduced to movement, weapon skill, ballistic skill, initiative, and leadership to 1. That is, whew. So this could probably completely mire a unit and make it so it has to like just move at a snail's pace. Like, oh, its movement is now 1. This Dance of Despair on here is stupid strong. So that is all of the Cataclysm spells here from the 8th edition Fantasy. Just wanted to quickly go through those here. If you have any questions, guys, or you want to leave some comments about what you think about the Cataclysm spells, or any other improvements you'd like to see to the Winds of Magic or the Magic system, by all means, guys, like I always say, leave a comment below. Let me know what you're feeling, what you're thinking. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one, and take care.